of building regulations, functions and standards to the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure. Let me also say this. Our response must not only be technical, it must be human. We are exploring options with the Department of Social Development and others to provide relief or support to families most affected, including those that have lost breadwinners. To that extent, and what we heard this morning, there is great suffering that these families continue to deal with. And I would ask and plead that those that so generously reached out after the collapse do so once again until government's internal processes have been finalized. Families are battling to put food on the table. They are battling to deal with the psychological trauma. They are battling with medical bills. To that extent, I call on the faith-based organizations, NGOs, and the private sector, not just in George, but across South Africa, to please open your arms, your wallets, and your generosity and hearts once again to support the Love Garden Route NPC through their account number being 1011 022 5528. That is Standard Bank, and the account number is 051001. We also will make that information publicly available. Let us do the human and right thing and continue to support these people who have lost so much. We are also taking seriously the vulnerabilities faced by foreign nationals on construction sites, many of whom work under exploitive or undocumented conditions. They are human beings too, and they must be protected, their presence recorded, and their rights upheld on construction sites. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a turning point for us. The George building collapse must never be remembered as just another tragedy. It must be remembered as a moment that we decided as a country to fix what is broken, to place public safety at the very top of every decision that we make, to demand competency and not complacency, and to restore the integrity to our built environment sector. Let us also remember that construction is not just about buildings. It is about people. It's about people's lives. It's about people's dignity. Because if we forget that, we will have no business building at all. Before I hand over to the CBE and EXA, who will take us through the more detailed version of their reports, I want to thank them both for the role and the diligent work that they have played. I also want to acknowledge again the families that have stood together and shown resilience in the face of absolute tragedy. We are also joined here this morning to my right by Ms. Elewani Mawela from Limpopo, who was injured in the most horrific way on site, and she will detail some of the views of the family, because I dare not speak on the tragedy and trauma that they have inflicted. But thank you for so bravely being willing to join us this morning, and the effort that you fight to not only seek justice for yourself, but those that worked with you on that site. You are a true testament to the fighting human spirit that we see amongst our families. I also want to say, ladies and gentlemen, to the people of George, thank you for the way that you have responded to this tragedy, the way that you came together after what happened was inspiring to all of us. I want to now invite Ms. Amelia Mchali, who is the chairperson of the Council for the Built Environment, the CEO of the Built Environment, Dr. Mieza, and Mr. Marikane, who is the president of the Engineering Council of South Africa, to present the technical findings of the report and provide any clarity on its recommendation. Over to you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Good morning to all the colleagues in the room. Good morning to the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure officials that are in the room today. As the Council for the Built Environment, we want to assure you and we want to make that commitment as the Council that regulates the built environment professions, that we take this matter seriously. The incident that happened in this place on the 6th of May 2024, we do not take lightly, because there are lives that have been lost. There are survivors that are struggling with the challenges of the incident that happened a year ago. So as the Council for the Built Environment, our mandate is to regulate the built professions. Our key mandate is also to ensure public interest, the public safety, also to ensure integrity for the built environment profession. And it is for that reason that we took it upon ourselves as the professional councils to investigate the matters that might have led to the collapse of the building in May 2026. So as the Council for the Built Environment, we initiated an investigation with a multidisciplinary teams of professional experts to really look into what happened for the building to collapse, why did it happen, what is it that we are going to do going forward as the professional councils to ensure that that incidents do not happen again. Where are the gaps that have been identified? How do we close the systemic gaps that have been identified throughout the investigation that we have initiated or we have instituted within the Council for the Built Environment with the various aspects that we have, so that we put proper measures in place so that we do not have a recurrence of what has happened in May 2026. So we are going to take you through the investigation reports that have been instituted with the Council for the Built Environment together with the various experts. We're going to take you through the findings and the recommendations going forward to ensure that we improve our systems within the built environment professions. And I would like to assure you that as the built environment professions, we are making that commitment today that the interest of the public is what we will ensure going forward, that we take accountability for, and collectively will ensure that processes are put in place, challenges that have been identified, we've got proper measures in place to close those gaps. Dr. Mieza is going to take you through the investigation that as the Council for the Built Environment has gone through with the recommendations that we have. Thank you, Dr. Mieza.
Thank you. Can you take your seats, please, just for because all the mics are in one place, so it's easy. Thank you very much.
It's 12 o'clock. Good afternoon, members of the media, Honorable Minister, Chairperson of the CBE, and colleagues, Matikane, ex-president. I am going to try and summarize the report that is about 200 pages long in few remarks. We have issued through the ministry a communique on what I'll be reading. We have titled our report An Anatomy of a Failed System. The reason why we titled the report like that, it's because our Constitution guarantees the Bill of Rights for all South Africans. A right that includes an environment that is not harmful to their health or well-being. It is therefore not surprising that the built environment or buildings in South Africa are highly regulated. Yet 34 people died. The use of cement and reinforced concrete frames, load-bearing masonry building, it's what we use in the construction site. We've been using cement as early as 1900. So the 75 Victoria Street building was not a new one. It was not a complex project. So you should not have experienced the catastrophe that it went through. Just to locate the reason why we think the George building collapse should not have happened, because history must teach us certain things. In South Africa, we had a number of building collapses. Just to jot your memory, in '96, Pretoria North Park Mall, where the third floor collapsed during the construction, killing 4 people and injuring many. In 2008, Little Falls Rotterport, where half of the 3-story building collapsed during the construction, killing 2 workers, injuring 14. Tongati Mall in 2013 November, where a slab collapsed after a beam gave way, after support were removed, killing 2 workers, seriously injuring 29 workers. These are some of the incidents that we have experienced as a country. Then the question should be, what did we do? As of a couple of weeks ago, a scaffolding collapsed in Durban. Prior to that, there was after George, there was Balito building that collapsed. There was Engobo wall that collapsed. And surely, as the custodian of the profession and the sector, through the ministry, something has to be done. And I think that's the reason why our report makes drastic recommendations. The chairperson has highlighted the grounds for our investigation. Just for completeness, the mandate of the CBE, which is Council for the Built Environment, is to advise government on any matter falling within the scope of the built environment, including issues of public health and safety. And that's what we should be advising the minister. In instances where there are occurrences of building collapse, we are mandated to investigate and make recommendations to the ministry through to cabinet and parliament on what laws must be amended. We undertook this investigation and were intentional about the quality of the professional team that we had to put together. Because it was a structural collapse, we employed 4 structural engineers, 1 architect, a forensic investigative lawyer, collectively with an experience of 120 years in the industry. So the findings that we're putting forward, it's what the collective team, through their experience, has proposed and we have accepted. In the main, our investigation covered the following. What are the pieces of legislations that pertains to design and construction of buildings must be looked into? What are the responsible parties that are all involved in the construction value chain, be it designers, owners, or professional team? The third part, what are the criteria that we use to ensure that before a construction can commence, a design meets those criteria? And then lastly, we ask them to make firm recommendations on how we can ensure that we avoid the incidents that I've referred to earlier. I've stated earlier that the built environment or construction sector is highly regulated, but I'll just zoom in relation to the construction, what governs the construction sector. There are 4 pieces of legislation that I want to refer you to. One is the National Building Regulations and Building Standards Act of 1977. This act is very clear. The owner of the building is required, 1, to submit building plans, and 2, to the municipality, and 3, ensure that you obtain certificate of occupancy upon completion of the building before the occupation can take place. But importantly, in relation to the work that we do, the owner is also required to ensure that they comply with all the prescripts, i.e. SPLUMA, which is a planning process, as well as appointing a competent person. And I think that's what Madigane will cover in his input. The second piece of legislation that is important that falls within Department of Labour is Occupational Health and Safety Act of 1993. Basically what this act says in relation to construction, it establishes the regulations of what is the requirement in terms of the construction work permits, notification of construction works, duties of the client, designer, as well as the contractor, and requirements for supervision. So as construction project unfold, it must be supervised. The third one is the one that deals with consumer health protection measures, which requires the NHBRC to establish a fund for the purpose of aiding housing consumers where home builders fail to rectify their major structural defects, to issues of workmanship, design, material, within a particular period. But the Act also prohibits any person from carrying out business in your property, if it's a residential property, for example, if you are not registered as a home builder. The last one that we are the custodian of is the Built Environment Professions Act. Under this Act, there are 9 professional disciplines that we regulate. These disciplines, in the main, are involved in the construction or infrastructure development. That includes the engineers, architects, town planners, land surveyors, geomatics, or geologists, quantity surveyors, environmental practitioners, and I'm missing one, I think. So those are the disciplines that falls within the Built Environment Professions Act. And that is what we regulate. How do we regulate the profession? We establish standards. We maintain the register of professionals who are registered after qualification, after they've been competently assessed. We award them professional title. So for someone to be called a quantity surveyor, there is a PR that you insert. It's like a medical profession. We also protect those titles because that's what they use to trade. We also set the rules and a code of conduct in an event these professionals default in terms of their duties. And that's what we use to hold them responsible professionally in instances like George that has happened. In the construction process, there are 3 gates that you need to actually enter, just to simplify it. Gate 1, which is a planning phase. No person may, without a prior consent or agreement or a permission from a local authority, start building a structure. So meaning that George building, they would receive an approval from the municipality. But it also says no construction work may commence before the construction permit has been issued by Department of Labour. And also it says you cannot start as a builder to commence with any work unless you've received a certificate for enrollment from NHBRC. That's gate 1, which is planning work. But gate 2 then says no person shall proceed with the erection of the unless the notice has been given to start proceeding with the construction. But I think the point I want to make here is that a contractor must at least 7 days before work is carried out notify the provincial director of Department of Labour to undertake inspection. So before you start, there must be inspection that happens. And during the construction project, inspectors from NHBRC are required to assess each and every stage. And the last stage really is about certification. A contractor must at least 7 days before work is carried out notify the director. That's done. The second part, which is a complete stage 3, a local authority must issue a certificate of occupancy to certify that the building has been. Obviously, in this instance, we did not arrive at that stage. And then the handing over of the property for occupation processes. I think it's important to paint that picture so that at least there is an appreciation on why building construction in these countries is regulated. Because the National Building Regulation mandates professionals to satisfy key requirements. One requirement is that when you design a building, it must be sound, it must be fit for purpose, especially the material use, and thirdly, the methods that you use for construction must be in order as well. But importantly, you are mandated to appoint a skilled, knowledgeable, and experienced personnel, i.e. professionals, to ensure that they perform these activities that I've alluded to ensure that there's integrity on the project. That's really what the Act mandates us to do. Where do they derive these powers? The CBE Act prescribed through its policy or through its Act, Section 20 of the CBE Act, that for you to be called a PR Eng or PR architect, CBE must determine the scope of work on what you must do. And I think that's a process that all the regulatory council are busy with, looking at the identification of work. And that's the legally required process. I know it might sound complicated, but I think the point I'm really making is that we are mandated by the Constitution to ensure that we regulate the construction processes. However, we must take into account that the usage of cement and concrete has been there since 1900. So that building should have not actually collapsed. That's really the message that is coming through. However, there are instances where building collapse. So our investigators looked at different studies, including the ones that I've mentioned, on why the building collapsed. One, I'll paraphrase. If the design actually has defects, you can construct it, building will collapse. Secondly, if your construction or your contractor moves away from the design, they misinterpret the design, the building will collapse. The third party is what the minister referred to, when there are no clear responsibilities on who does what, i.e. the gentleman, the health and safety officer, who abandoned site, the contractor who said, let's patch using cement. When there are observations about defects that were picked up by workers, the professional team did not act within the professional code of conduct. That's really the third part why the building collapsed. Now, what we found in George, I think some of the findings the minister touched on in his opening remarks. What we found in George on why the building collapsed. So I'll just go through this quickly. Number one, there was a movement of a rope slab. That happened 2 days before the collapse. A contractor observed an unusual building movement and vibration on the roof slab. So already you knew that there was something wrong. Number two, cracks around the base of the columns. Cracks were also noted at the base of the column on the ground floor that resembled punch-through patterns. Concerns were also raised around the narrow supporting columns and large spaces between them. The absence of critical features such as slabs expansion joint raised further alarm. A subcontractor warned of the cracks starting to appear as early as 2023, to the extent that no one could see them through while standing, at the basement. So there were visible cracks. That's the professional observation. The third issue was poor workmanship and quality of work. The site manager instructed that the cracks be patched with mixture of sand, cement, and mortar. This subcontractor, during an interview, stated that he had observed discrepancies in the concrete supplied for the basement and the first floor slab. The specifications called for 19 megapascal or 25 megapascal concrete. In the material supply was 13, so obviously there was a problem. The fourth observation that we found was the safety violation. The health and safety agent resigned during the construction, stating that it was impossible for the safeguard of the interests of both client and the contractor amid safety violations. And I think the point that we're making here, as a professional, you're supposed to report somewhere that there are issues on site, therefore I'm not able to continue. Number 5, inadequate geotechnical investigation. Let me put it simply, I think the minister covered this point. When they were building the foundation or the underground parking, there was water which was pumped. If you've driven around George, you'll notice that there aren't a lot of buildings that have underground parking. And therefore, surely when you decide to create a building like that one with underground parking, you need to actually pay attention to geotech issues. And I think they fell short. As a result of that, it impacted the structural integrity of the building. The other point was lack of competence. I think Matigane will cover the point. But in the main, the competent person for the structural system seemingly lacked necessary expertise for design of the complex structure. The current system rely heavily, I think the minister addressed the point of self-assessment and the fact that for some of us, if you to go to a medical doctor, you don't go to a GP for specialized function. In this case, the competent person that was appointed was a generalist, and the project was a complex one. And I think EXA will deal with that aspect. The other point that the minister addressed is the issue of the outdated legislations. And I think the point there is really to say our industry has evolved and some of the laws that we are using are outdated. The other point that we also observed was fragmentation of the built environment. The regulatory bodies that are charged with administering the construction site worked in silos, with inadequate information sharing and coordination, hindering the effective oversight and enforcement. And different frameworks for assessing demonstrated competence and recognizing those that have been assessed needs to be put in place to address legitimate safety expectation in higher categories of structural risk. The most worrying one that we thought from a regulatory point of view needs our attention urgently is inconsistencies on how we deal with enforcement. There are different interpretations in terms of regulation and skill sets on what different professional bodies regard when you deal with competency and enforcement. The last 3 points, really, they are all together. It's about how our industry has not embraced new technologies and new design and different ways of doing things to ensure that we improve, like innovation, Internet of Things. That's really some of the issues that were observed in that construction of that project that could have led to the collapse. The question would be from the media is, what are we doing about it? We are putting 14 regulations and mandatory standards, which will be submitted through the minister to cabinet for approval. These are intended to strengthen gaps that we have identified, as well as the improvement in the building regulations to ensure that we minimize recurrence of life-threatening structural collapses. I think the minister also covered the issue of ensuring that we strengthen our investigative powers as the organization to ensure that we avoid these issues. The issues of safety protocol will be putting in place. Those are easy things that we'll do between now as part of the immediate intervention. And just to conclude, Minister, we want to implement these recommendations to ensure that these required change that we are proposing will also touch on issues of legislative reforms, but there's also behavioral issues that we must deal with, and thirdly, issues of ethical conduct of professionals, where they submit incorrect designs, submit unnecessary variation, relationship between contractors and consulting individual on site, which has resulted to some of these things being overlooked for the sake of expediency and to ensure that the project is concluded on time, occupation happens, and then they move on. As a client or a recipient of the product, you are then stuck with a product that you can't be able to enjoy the benefit. And lastly, Minister, we in support of your announcement in Parliament during your budget vote, we do hope that some of the proposals that we're putting forward, they won't take long. They will be immediate, and some of them, obviously, they have to go through normal parliamentary process. That concludes our statement as CBE, but the report will be the statement that will be shared with yourselves. Thank you very much, Minister.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mieza and Ms. Mchali. I really want to commend the work of the CBE that they have done in the thorough and complete report as it pertains to the regulatory body and the proposals that they have come up with. I have embraced every single one. I have not chosen to cherry pick or to say that one's a bit difficult. We fully accept all 14 recommendations from the investigatory report. Mr. Marakane, who is the President of the Engineering Council for South Africa, will now take us through his report.
Good afternoon, Minister. Good afternoon, members of the media. Good afternoon to CBE Chairperson and CBE CEO and colleagues from the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure. The role of Engineering Council of South Africa, it derives its authority from Section 14 of the Engineering Profession Act 46 of 2000, which empowers it to take any step it deems necessary, where as a result of engineering undertakings, public health and safety is prejudiced. As a South African regulatory body of engineering, EXA's mandate is under the Act, which is EPA. It includes the necessary steps where public health and safety is prejudiced, and enforcing compliance and investigating potential improper conduct. You will hear me now and again emphasizing the issue of public health and safety, which is one of our key mandates as the Engineering Council of South Africa. The EPA also grants the Council a quasi-judicial function in regulating improper conduct for registered person. When we talk about registered person, we're referring to individuals who are registered as professional engineers, professional engineering technologies, professional engineering technicians, and specified categories. EXA's investigation into the George building collapse had the following objectives. The first one, to identify the root cause, to analyze the structural, material, and execution factors to determine the underlying causes of the collapse. And then secondly, to evaluate compliance with professional standards. That means assess where the actions of a registered person adhere to EXA's Code of Conduct and Code of Practice. You will hear me again mentioning the EXA's Code of Conduct and Code of Practice. Every individual that is professionally registered must adhere to the Code of Conduct and Code of Practice. And then the third part regarding the investigation is to uphold the public safety. That means formulate recommendations or action to prevent similar incidents, emphasizing improved oversight and regulatory practices. Dr. Mieza also mentioned some of the improvements that are going to be undertaken. I just want to highlight some of the chronological milestones that have taken place since the 6th of May 2024. When the building collapsed in the 6th of May 2024, EXA was alerted of the incident, and EXA was very prompt in terms of appointing an investigator who's professionally registered and competent to undertake the investigation. So on the 7th of May, our investigator was on site to start the preparation for the investigation. He had to collect core samples, gather essential documents, emphasize the importance of thorough and impartial investigation. On the 6th of June, the EXA Governing Council issued a resolution enacting the precaution suspension of the registered person. This decision was not taken lightly. It was based on a number of other incidents, the registered person that were reported to the Engineering Council of South Africa. So the Governing Council resolved to put the registered person on a precautionary suspension. On the 31st of July 2024, the investigating committee, which is one of the high impact committees of the Engineering Council, reviewed the initial findings of the preliminary report. So the investigating committee, it's one of their mandates is to deal with investigations. And then on the 16th September of 2024, the final report was concluded. And it's also too important just to highlight that as the Engineering Council of South Africa, we've been participating on quite a number of meetings with other entities. Multiple agency meeting led by SAPS facilitated the alignment and cooperation between EXA and several other bodies like CBE and HBRC. EXA and CBE also participated on quite a number of meetings where there was Department of Labor, the SAPS Western Cape, and then as well as National Prosecution Authority. And we've been doing that in the interest of the public safety. On the 16th of October 2024, the investigating committee formally recommended charges against the registered person, identified multiple breaches of the Code of Conduct. As I've indicated, it's the Code of Conduct and the Code of Practice. As EXA, we follow processes in terms of what needs to be done once the investigating committee, they've finished their work, the next step as per the Act, which is the EPA, which guides us. On the 14th of November, the Council issued a resolution of preferring charges against the registered person. Again, this is as per the Act that the Council must prefer those charges. On the 7th of March, I'm just highlighting the key milestones in terms of work that has been done regarding this investigation. 7th of March 2025, EXA received a formal notice from the respondent's legal representative confirming that the respondent elected not to participate in the hearing, with the instruction that the proceedings should continue in his absence. That is again within our Act that if the respondent doesn't want to participate in the hearing, we can continue with the hearing. And the hearing took place on the 29th and the 30th of May 2025, and the disciplinary tribunal held their meetings in 2 days. So the disciplinary tribunal is an independent body. It comprises of an admitted attorney, who is the chairperson of the tribunal, and then 2 registered individuals who are professionally registered and suitably qualified. So that's the tribunal. And then in terms of leading the evidence was led by the experts representing EXA. So based on the 29th and the 30th of May, on the 29th of June 2025, the guilt verdict was received from the disciplinary tribunal. On the 3rd of July 2025, the guilt finding and sanction was communicated to the guilty party. So the guilty party is got 30 days, which is up to the 3rd of August, to indicate whether he wants to appeal or not. Let me just highlight the charges that were preferred. As I've indicated, that the charges are based on the Code of Conduct and the Code of Practice. So there were 5 charges that were preferred. The first one is the contravention of Rule 1.1a which is failure to discharge duties to the employers, clients, associates, and the public with due care, skill, and diligence. The second contravention is Rule 1.1c, which is the failure to adhere to professional norms when carrying out work. The third charge is contravention of Rule 3.2g, which is mispresentation or knowingly permitting misrepresentation of academic or professional qualification or competence. So, EXA, when you are professionally registered, you are issued with the code of conduct and the code of practice. And EXA relies on the individual's understanding of the code of conduct and the code of practice. So if you are given a type of job that we are not competent to do, you are not supposed to do it. So that is very clear once you get professionally to register that you must adhere to the code of conduct. The fourth one is the contravention of Rule 3.3, which is failure to give due regard to and to prioritize health, safety, and the interest of the public. The last one is the contravention of Rule 8.1, which is the code of practice, which is failure to comply with the relevant legislation, including the EPA, which is the Engineering Profession Act of 2000, the Occupational Health and Safety Act of 1993, the National Building Regulations and Building Standards Act 103 of 1977, the National Environmental Management Act 107 of 1998. So the registered person is fully aware about these charges that were preferred to him, as I've indicated in the previous presentation. And then I just want to highlight the sanction that were imposed. Having considered the seriousness of the matter, the tribunal decided to impose the following sanctions on the respondent. One, the maximum fine permissible in terms of the Adjustment of Fines Act 101 of 1991. Two, the cancellation of respondents' registration and the removal of their name from the EXA register. What does that mean? It means the individual won't be able to practice engineering in South Africa. And again, when it comes to abroad, EXA is also a member of International Engineering Alliance. If an individual wants to practice in South Africa, there's always background checks in terms of what they can do and what they cannot do. So we work very closely with other jurisdictions. I just want to highlight some of the pending processes because the Act of EXA is very clear what can be done, and then the Act of CBE is very clear in terms of what can be done. So there's an appeal process which the individual, the registered person, is aware of, but that window ends at the end of 3rd of August 2025. Once that process is complete, if the registered person chooses to follow that process and he is not happy with the outcome from EXA, if he's still aggrieved, he can lodge an appeal with CBE, which is the Council of Built Environment. And again, CBE, they also have an independent process, which is clearly defined in their act in terms of how they deal with that process. They also appoint an independent tribunal to handle that. If the outcome of CBE, the registered person is not happy about, that individual can elevate the matter to the High Court. Minister, I just want to highlight that this is what is in our acts, whether it's EXA or CBE. It allows a fair chance of a registered person to elevate whatever outcomes he or she is not happy about. So that's the process that we've been following as EXA and CBE. I just want to also highlight that the SAPS and the NPA criminal proceedings are still underway. And EXA, we were requested to submit information in terms of the Criminal Procedure Act, and we've submitted information to SAPS. So EXA is a witness as a result of that. So, and we respect those processes. I just want to also reiterate what the minister said earlier on. As the process is not complete, but come the date of August, as per the Act, we will gazette the outcome, but we can't before the date of August. Over and above the recommendations that were mentioned by CBE, I'm excited to say that our minister has taken the plea of revising our Act very seriously. I mean, our Act were established in 2000, all the CBEBs under CBE, and it's one of the driving force to update those Acts, and we are pleased that the minister has taken that plea from us seriously. And then I just want to also mention the issue of the identification of work that we are running with. And as part of the identification of work, there's also the enforcement. So as the Engineering Council of South Africa, we've been doing workshops, engaging stakeholders, because another gap that we've seen, some of the client bodies, they are not fully aware what registered people can do. So we've been engaging various stakeholders so that they can fully understand what registered person can do, etc., etc. I thank you, Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Marikane. Before I hand over to Lennox, I'm going to ask Elawani to be able to come and sit here. And just, she was one of the survivors of the George building collapse. And we've invited her just to be able to give any reflections that she should wish from this morning. It was difficult for her and the family to hear about what happened, but it was part of the work that we are doing to help them, and any other further reflections that she may wish to give. So, over to you.
It's not easy to talk, but I will try. If you can see me, I lost my teeth. I can't eat properly. It's very hard. No money, no support. How can I get money to buy milk, soft food? It's very hard. Life is very hard to me. And I'm staying far. I'm staying in Limpopo. I'm going back today, 2 o'clock. I'm going back Limpopo. I'm coming here today because I want to meet Minister. Thank you very much for your support, all of us. I miss my friend. I lost a lot of people. It's very painful. A lot of people at home starting to bully me because I don't have a teeth. Please help us. I will fight until I get justice. It's very painful. I'm still young. I can't eat, I can't smile, I can't talk. Because I'm scared because people are going to bully me which means I'm going to kill myself because I need help. Please, I need help. I need justice. Please help us, help me also. I don't have a lot of words. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Ask the Lord to reach where you can't reach us. But yeah, the government, the ministers here, and you know there will be some lights at the end of the day. And just going to request that you allow them to compose themselves, but we then proceed towards the end of the day.
See, folks, this is why it's so critical that we again, and I'll make the appeal again, I'll give you the details. We really need South Africans to step up again and help. We really do need until these issues are finalized. So please, I'm appealing to all good-hearted South Africans to again open up their hearts, their generosity, and support these families that have no support at the moment. They have no support at the moment. So please, if you can make contributions to the Love Garden Route NPC, Standard Bank, account number 1011 5528. The branch number is 051001. It's the absolute least that we can do to help a young lady like this regather her life and at least bring some sense of closure to the work that she is having to deal with, often on her own.
Thank you, Minister. I think the lead minister can experience when the subject like this is indeed a wake-up call, and the journey certainly open the lives of us who are still living. Let me take questions on the floor, colleagues, quickly. I think it's been comprehensive enough. If our review, I will certainly be going to take quite a lot of things here. I know to Kevin, that colleague, what colleague,
Good afternoon, Minister and the panel. My name is Kevin. I'm from ENCA. Just in your interaction with the South African Police Service and the other entities, that we know that this is a multi-layered investigation, but in your discussions in particular with the SAPS, I get the understanding that that is the main body that will narrow it down into who is responsible for the building. Update in terms of their probe, if they share any information, any communication between your department and them. And just the gentleman here on my left from the Engineering Council. This accident is cast a very bad light on construction engineering in the country. Just a reaction from you in terms of, you've highlighted now the technical aspects, but where would you like to see us go and take this in terms of the profession itself? Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Minister. As well as members of the panel, I'm Sipa Kema from Ministerial Africa. As my colleague Kevin says, we understand it is a multi-department and multi-layered investigation. But I just wrote this down in case I forget. So the companies that have been, what has been said now, the conclusive report, it's pointing the finger mostly at those companies that were involved. And we know the last time no one could get a hold of the actual big company that was doing this development, besides Leotal and other engineering companies. But the top one that was actually doing this. Has anyone been able to get a hold of them? And if so, I mean, if not, how are they going to be held accountable for this? Because it seems as though all the fingers, they point back to them. And then one last question. With Human Settlements, they released their report from the Building Council that was in April. And they also, some of their the conclusive reports pointed the finger at also the municipality, as you've also mentioned the municipality. So with regards to them maybe ignoring important factors and regulations that allowed this company to continue building, what accountability are they facing with this regard?
Okay, correct. Thank you, Lisa.
Good morning, my name is Eugene Gunning. I represent the Report newspaper. I would like to know from the Minister, what role do you think of accountability should the local government play here? And have you got a timeline that you would like these matters to come to a point, seeing that we can try to prevent another disaster like this? Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Jackie Kruger. I am from Network 24, Netwerk 24. I actually just wanted to ask what reports are still outstanding, to your knowledge.
Okay, I'll allow you time to respond to this set of questions. Then we take the final rounds. Over to you, the Minister and the panel.
Thank you very much. I will allow also my colleagues to respond to some of them. Let me say that it is vitally critical that we protect the integrity of the SAPS investigation. That's why I've spoken out strongly in the press conference that I did before my budget vote, that it is unhelpful where political parties or other individuals are trying to use this as an opportunity for political gain as opposed to seeking justice for the family. And I have given my commitment to the family this morning that I will continue to be a buffer between those parties that want to use their pain and suffering at the expense of seeking justice for them and their loved ones. The SAPS, and I don't have a direct line into the investigation, but I know that it is being led, Kevin, with a prosecutorial-led approach to ensure that everything that is being done in the various reports and the various investigations lead to criminal conviction. We can't be a country that just the maximum sentence for someone could be deregistration of their professional qualification. We can't have a situation where 34 people die and people suffer horrific injuries and we pretend that it is just professional misconduct. That is not my view, and I cannot speak for the police, but I know that their approach is to seek convictions through the Criminal Procedures Act. And we support that approach of theirs. I'm not going to respond directly around development companies because our focus as the regulators for the built environment is around the professions in it. And I think that one of the gaps that we've identified is that national housing building regulations don't reside with us. And so you have this fragmented and scattered approach. But I will also allow the doc specifically to speak to that. Let me say on the issue of local government, I think it's my considered view that we need to be alarmed at the critical skill shortages that exist in local governments to be able to deal with issues of planning, zoning, and enforcement. And what we should be doing is saying, how do we give them also the ability to do their job? Are there failures within the municipality? I would not be able to make a conclusive determination around that, because, as I said, our view is around the professionals that had to investigate this. What I will say is that there were, of course, a number of red flags that were continuously raised up around this project. And I don't know what their capacity or capability was to do on-site inspections, but it was very clear that that information was available to a plethora of agencies that did not then act on that information. For Netwerk 24, the outstanding reports, as I am now aware of, is the Employment and Labour report. I have discussed this matter with Minister Meth this week at a cabinet committee, and I have implored Labour to not only finalise the report that they need to contribute, but also the matter of financial compensation and assistance for people that were desperately injured in that tragedy. We heard this morning that not a single rand has been made available yet from Employment and Labour. We heard that, unfortunately, that people who have suffered horrific injuries have to continuously go back and forth to employment officers. Now, there's a gentleman, Shadrach, who lost both his left leg and left arm, and I'm not sure how he is expected or required to go in and out of offices to fill in forms. We need to be taking government to people that have been injured and assisting. We shouldn't be taking an approach that says, come to us. So that is still outstanding, and it's something that we are imploring the department to finalise, as well as the compensation and financial assistance of victims. Doc, I don't know if you want to reflect on some of those issues as well, particularly the building, the housing company.
Yeah. No, thank you very much. I think the point that we're making in our submission was that the building control regulations currently, it places different responsibilities to the owner, contractor, and the designer, and it absolves the approval authority. So a municipality can approve designs or drawings. If something goes wrong on site, the law currently stands, they're absolved. So there's no obligation for them to ensure that what they approve can stand the test of time. Hence, we called for the review of the building control regulation, so that at least you are able to deal with the accountability matrix in its totality. At this point in time, you can hold this accountable, the contractor, the professional, but not municipalities at this point in time, because the law allows them to do so.
All right.
Thank you. Let's take next round of hands. I see no indication. Colleagues, I think colleagues online, we've already agreed on the process and approach going forward. I wish at this point to indicate that Minister has brought this report and the processes which are shining the light on some of the issues that were involved here. But he has also commented a process towards accountability and ensuring that there is justice and that there is a safer future in the built environment going forward. With those words, Minister, I want to thank you and the panel and thank the colleagues on behalf of the benefits that you made earlier on. We shall be up.
And please let us collectively thank Elwani, who bravely came here to tell her story. I really would like us to thank her.
Thank you very much, colleagues from the media. I've also seen one of my colleagues here left, and very young, seen in the big system. Thank you very much, colleagues. But my land is still there. Thank you for
It doesn't exist.
Thank you. Well done.
You can just break it down. You say,
this is not right.
yeah,
You flouted it.